I remember an interesting debate that occurred a while back, and I mean a while, probably before I was aware of Sam Shamoun's existence, pretty much, where he had a debate between Rex, aka Islam and Friends, and Khalid, aka, or Khalid, Sort of Allah, aka Sort of Allah. An interesting debate it was, although I'm pretty much unimpressed with Rex and Sort of Allah's responses to Shamoun. Somewhat disappointed. But what I want to address in this video is some of the arguments what I hope to do is address what Sort of Allah said to Sam Shamoun in his opening statement, and and try and respond to what Khalid said, or Sort of Allah said, about Sam Shamoun's quote-unquote skewed interpretation of verses. Well, skewed in Sort of Allah's eyes, obviously. Anyway, let's have a listen to the audio, and I hope to interact with it as we go along. Let's begin.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The thing that bothers me the most about what we're talking about is that as a Muslim, I love Jesus. I love Jesus Christ. He was a prophet of Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it bothers me that he is being lied against. People are lying against Jesus Christ, saying that he was God. Jesus never claimed to be God. Nowhere in the Quran, nowhere in the Bible did Jesus claim to be God. Jesus never said, I am God. He never said that. I say, I am Khalid. Rex says, I am Rex. Pastor Joe says, I am Pastor Joe. Sam Shamoun says, I am Sam Shamoun, but Jesus never said, I am God.
And the usual entree that Muslims bring to the table is Ahmed Didat's worn out, dead, where did Jesus say, I am God, worship me? And they want the exact words, pretty much. Khalid Yassin did the same thing in one talk that Dr. James White has addressed very well in his videos. Anyway, carrying on. Jesus never said, I am God, worship me. That is true. But that doesn't mean that's not a denial of his deity. In fact, in other videos, I've even responded to some arguments by Muslim for Life, certainly a notorious little liar, for some of his arguments that he brought to the table, which also came from Ahmed Didat. Jesus may not have said, I am God, worship me, in those exact words, but that doesn't mean he denied being God whatsoever. In fact, there's also the Book of Revelation, which I hope to mention later on. Also, another thing to note, Jesus doesn't say, I am the Messiah in those exact words, nor does he say, I am virgin born in those exact words. Does that mean he's not the Messiah? No. I mean, in Matthew 16, it does say, then he told his disciples not to tell anyone that he was the Messiah. But again, what's the Muslim criteria? Where did Jesus say, I am God, worship me? So according to the Muslim criteria, since we don't have the exact words of Jesus that say, I am the Messiah, or I am virgin born, we need to conclude that the Bible does not teach Jesus is virgin born and doesn't teach he's the Messiah. That logic doesn't work. And again, Matthew 16, it does say that Jesus told them not to tell anyone he was the Messiah. But again, I ask the audience, does it record Jesus saying, I am the Messiah? Does it say that? So that's a question to the Muslim. So, a little bit of inconsistency on the part of Ahmed Didat there. Carrying on.
So what does that say? That means that anything, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, people that are listening to this wonderful debate that we are going through, anything that the Christians give you is the result of their own skewed interpretations of the verses of their Bible. It is not the words of Jesus clearly stating, I am God. It is the interpretation of the verses, their interpretations of the the verses that they wish to pluck and pull out of the Bible. So I'm going to do some plucking and pulling of my own.
It's interesting that Khalid is even mentioning this point at all, because Shadid Lewis and Sami Zaatari do the very thing that Khalid is falsely accusing Sam of when it comes to the doctrine of the Trinity. And also with regards to other things, you should see in many videos how Shadid Lewis and Sami Zaatari tear the New Testament to shreds. You should really see the videos on YouTube of how those snakes rip the New Testament to shreds. For example, Sami Zaatari claiming Jesus is a sinner just because he spared the adulterous woman, which I may address in another video. And of course there's Shadid Lewis's use of Michael Bajent with regards to the words soma and protoma, and also Shadid Lewis made the absurd claim that Jesus was given healing herbs, despite the fact that the very Gospels he quoted said Jesus died. That Dr. Oakley has even taken the time to address Shadid with regards to this issue. It's just so funny the lengths that Muslims will go to butcher the Bible to the nth degree. I've heard others do the same, but we're getting sidetracked, so carrying on. When I say tear the New Testament to shreds, I mean they look at the text and they just, write the Bible with scissors. They look at the Bible with a pair of scissors, that sort of thing. They cut the text up and dissect it and then rip it out of context. That's what I mean. Anyway, carrying on.
And first off, I heard Mr. Sam Shamoun say that according to the Bible, God is comparable to nothing. But if you look in Genesis chapter 1, verse 27, it says, God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them.
It astonishes me that Khalid is even making this claim about Genesis, where it talks about God making man in his own image. It's not saying that God is comparable to his creation. What it is saying is that, like God, when we're made in the image and likeness of God, it means that we're able to think, reason, plan, like God is able to. That's how we are made in God's likeness. It doesn't make us comparable to God whatsoever. So, what it simply means is that we're able to function and reason like God is able to do the same thing. That's all the text really is about.
So the Bible does give you a description of God. In Genesis chapter 32, verses 22 through 29, God lost a wrestling match with Jacob.
Wow. Did Khalid just say that God was losing a wrestling match to Jacob? Really? Wow, you actually confirmed the Christian position, because that's what we believe about Jesus. Trinitarians believe that it was Jesus who was wrestling with Jacob. Well, I'm not sure if all Trinitarians agree, but I would certainly agree with that, And of course, remember who Isaiah saw in Isaiah 6. He saw Yahweh, didn't he? And John says it's Jesus, in John 12:41. So it shouldn't be surprising that Genesis 33, with regards to God, Jacob wrestling with God, certainly sounds like Jesus to me. And also Justin Martyr even comments on this in his dialogue with Trypho. So that's worth considering. We have an early church father before Nicaea who identifies the angel of the Lord as Jesus. Or that's what he's trying to convey to Trypho himself. In Hosea 12, it is mentioned that it was an angel that Jacob had wrestled with. But in Genesis 32, it clearly indicates that Jacob is wrestling with God himself. In fact, Jacob even calls the place Peniel, saying, "It is because I saw God face to face, yet my life was spared." Very interesting. Carrying on.
So he is comparable to something. What do these verses suggest? It suggests that God is not even as powerful God. First of all, I want to direct you to Numbers, the book of Numbers, chapter 23, verse 21.
Actually, it's Numbers 23, verse 19, but that's just simply a slip up on Khalid's part. So we'll let that slide. We can all make mistakes like that.
It says, God is not a man that he should lie, nor a son of man that he should change his mind. Son of man, God is not a man.
Well, we as Christians are not saying God is a man. We're saying that God took on flesh, but did not cease being God in heaven. That's the thing. God is not a man, and also, I, the Lord, do not change. It's not a negation of God becoming man. It's talking about God's trustworthiness. Even Nat Demon provides a good response on that. And I've also been writing an article addressing this argument brought up by Richard Merrill, an anti-Trinitarian, who's written an article called "The Trinity is Not of the Truth." And my article is of the same name, but with a question mark. Numbers 23:19 does not say that God cannot become a man. It's simply saying that he doesn't lie like man. He's not untrustworthy like man. He's not untruthful like man. But again, Christians are not saying that God became man and ceased being God altogether. We're talking about God in heaven taking on human flesh, tabernacling among us. That's what we're talking about.